Good evening. You have found the Burglar Report, your number one choice for news, politics, and gray and white throw pillows. Of course, I'm your host with the most, Dave Steppenwolf. And for today's segment, we're going to follow up with some old Trump train news. Well, another swift kick in the nuts for the Trump train, which is still rolling, hasn't quite stopped. Of course, I'm referring to the big lawsuit out of Texas. We're waiting all week for the Supreme Court to make a ruling or make a comment. And yesterday, they did. And they pretty much tossed it to the side. Didn't throw it out entirely. There's hope yet. But as I've said already, we are in the quickening. Events are coming at you left and right, faster and faster. Things are getting crazy and very, very intense, to say the least. Let's go over that document. I have actually already pulled up. Let's see what we got over here. That one. That one. Is it the right one? Oh, yes, indeed it is. In any case, like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch. All right, so Friday, December 11th, 2020, order in pending case, which means the case hasn't been thrown out. State of Texas motion for leave to file a bill of complaint is denied for lack of standing under Article 3 of the Constitution. Texas has not demonstrated a judicially cognizable interest in the manner which in their state conducts its elections. So, if you don't know, Texas filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court saying that the four swing states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, I believe those were the four, violated their own state constitution in regards to mail-in ballots, wasn't fair to Texas and the rest of the states that had to follow the rules. They were filing a complaint. They had standing. But according not to Judge Alito, this was his little blurb there. And right underneath it says statement of Justice Alito, with whom Justice Thomas joins. In my view, we do not have discretion to deny the filing of a bill of complaint in case that falls within our original jurisdiction. See Arizona versus California. So Judge Thomas, there's a bit of a contention there. He says we need to take this up. We need to oversee or make a ruling, or so. It's pretty much that's the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is state versus state, which he cites Arizona versus California. And then follow up. And that's from February 24, 2020, I believe, that filing. So Justice Thomas is dissenting. I will therefore grant the motion to file the bill of complaint, but will not grant other relief, and I express no view on any other issue. So from what I'm seeing that they're saying here, go back to this one. Sorry. Oop, magic. From what I can understand with my pea brain, they set aside the initial filing, and that Texas has no standing as far as damages. But they have yet to make a ruling on the merits of the case. So something there still. Who knows? I could be wrong. Pretty messed up that threw that out entirely. And I believe somewhere the ruling on that was 2-7, which the other conservative judges had nothing to say. So it's like, how's that was the big one. That was the most realistic chance Trump had to overturn the mail-in ballot portions of the swing states. But to be fair, those four states weren't the only ones that violated their own constitutions through the court systems and overriding the legislature as far as electoral votes. I mean, if you didn't know, the whole thing with the states that Texas was complaining about, states like Pennsylvania proposed, I believe it was Act 77. They were going to put in a law that mail-in votes were essentially the same as absentee votes, which they kind of are. And they're going to make it constitutional. They didn't follow through with it, and they kind of went a workaround with their court systems, and the legislature never actually never amended the Constitution. Well, they weren't the only state that did that. I mean, Montana even brought up where, we did the same thing. But obviously Montana was overwhelmingly red, so it wasn't really contentious issue. And yeah, there's plenty of states that. And ultimately, before the Supreme Court's ruling, there was like 20 states in support of the Texas case. I think 4 or 5 states wanted to intervene, which means they would actually get on the case themselves. It was like 120 some odd representatives in Congress were in support of the case. And then as on the defendant side, the 4 swing states, there was like 20 some states in support of them. So we're talking it was a pretty damn big issue for the Supreme Court. And for them to just toss it aside so, I mean, I want to say flippantly, but I don't know if that's the right word, but it just seems to be like kind of a big letdown. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of bummed. I was like, but they haven't thrown it out completely, and they still got to make some kind of ruling on it or make a decision, so we'll see we'll see what's to come. It's a damn roller coaster. Let's go for Trump, and then bam, some news, some bad news. And the good news, bad news. So we'll see how this turns out. I mean, I believe I heard some good news today that the Supreme Court of Wisconsin agreed to oversee or check out a ruling or complaint by the GOP, or the filing, however. So there could be some precedency there if something rules in Republicans' favor. I'm pretty sure that it's the same type of filing with the mail-in ballots, or it might have been Dominion. I don't know. To be honest, I didn't even look. I just heard that. I was like, oh, well, there's a possibility there. So we'll see how that turns out. But I mean, it's getting intense. When you're talking 20 states versus 20 states, I mean, you want to talk about some traditional Civil War battleground, political hostility. That's what that is there. And the fact that the Supreme Court didn't rule in the favor of the Republicans, I don't think Trump supporters are going to take this line down. All day today, you had March on D.C., today being Saturday. And there was a lot of skirmishes already. I believe there was reports of stabbings, and there's just a lot of protesting. Not so much rioting from the right, but when Antifa comes out and starts starting shit, that's what's going to happen. And I believe that's ultimately, or hopefully, if there is some kind of Civil War uprising or something, that's nothing more than a few skirmishes. But it could be way more than that. The GOP out of Texas, the head of the GOP, already talked about might be a better idea for states to start seceding. That's pretty crazy. They want to maybe to secede to a separate union or get out of the union to essentially form a group that upholds the Constitution, because all these other states were clearly violating the Constitution when it comes to the election rules. Kind of rough. It definitely kills any faith you have in the election. When you have all this weird anomalies and evidence, don't want to say the magic word, there's definitely stuff to be discussed. Shouldn't be ignored, shouldn't be swept under the rug, but, what are you going to do? Well, their suggestion is to secede. And I kind of like the idea. I live in California. California is going to secede probably the other way with the Democrats, but I'm not a Republican, but definitely not a Democrat anymore. And, you got a lot of economists talking about, oh, yeah, well, if they secede, the Democrats or Democratic states, the blue areas, have all the money, so the red states are going to turn into third world countries. I'm not really buying that. The red areas, or even the red areas of the blue states of California, are the producers. You got the agriculture producers. The red areas and other blue areas, or other blue cities, blue states, same thing. That's all your farmers are working. A lot of the manufacturing. The blue areas can't survive without the red. That's just kind of why we got to get along. We got to have to come to some kind of agreement. And I don't know if you've been to any of the major cities lately. They're pretty crappy. And I mean, when you can get an app, if you're in San Francisco, to see where the bums drop their loads, it's literally crappy on the streets. So not necessarily something to be proud of. And if the red states were to pull out support, all the blue areas would collapse completely. Who cares if they have the most money because of taxes and because of gerrymandering, or because of whatever federal money they're having subsidizing? Not buying it. That's just wishful thinking. ultimately we need to get along. We can't be dividing up the country. And I mean, how would we? You'd have what? East Coast, West Coast, South. I mean, that's at least 3 different countries. What would that mean for our dollar? What would that mean for all of our military? What would that mean for the rest of? That'd be crazy. I would definitely move out of California if if something like that would happen. But I mean, California has what, the 5th biggest economy in the world? Granted, maybe 40% of it's real estate, which is kind of bogus. But California is a large producer of, it's the breadbasket essentially of the United States. A lot of, crops in the Midwest and all that stuff. But whatever. I'm just saying, it'd be bad for everybody. Not to mention, you see what Antifa's doing again in Oregon, setting up another autonomous zone. Well, not again in Oregon. Initially, it was in Seattle. Now they're doing it in Oregon. Maybe not for the worst reason. I believe they were trying to keep a family from getting evicted from their house they lived in for 4 or 5 generations. A little backstory now. The people haven't been working, probably because of lockdowns. But they did make a mistake and pull out some kind of loan mortgage thing. House was paid off, and then all of a sudden now they have a house payment. So we kind of got to teach your kids, you don't freaking borrow against your equity, because it's typically a bad idea. It might be good short term, but long term, you're going to end up getting kicked out of the house. Or, I mean, the whole 2008 crash, there's a lot of people doing some weird stuff like that. Or, I mean, on the consumer end. The big banks were, that's a whole different conversation. But, like I said, to be fair, if you're in lockdown, you can't support your family, what else are you going to do? So people standing up to keep those people from being evicted, I kind of side with them. But where I don't side with them is when they just set up a full autonomous zone, stockpiles of guns, and things are getting crazy already. I mean, look what you had in Seattle with Chaz, or Chop, whatever it's called. People were getting killed. There were shootings there was at least 3 or 4 people were shot to death. At least 1 woman was raped. There was probably more rapes. It wouldn't let cops in to save people's lives. Wouldn't let EMTs in. There's one instance where these 2 or 3 teenagers were in a car and got lit up with hundreds of rounds. I don't remember the backstory of it, but it's freaking nuts. When you don't have law and order, you kind of have chaos. So we don't want to go down that route. But my point was, if you see that setting up with the left, what do you think the right's going to do? If they don't recognize the results of this election, for whatever reason, the Supreme Court is not hearing what the right has to say, what the GOP is saying, what the state of Texas is saying, what the conservatives are saying, if they don't have a voice, they're not going to recognize the results of anything. And it could be more or less the same as what the left is doing. The right can set up their checkpoints, and things could escalate really bad. I mean, look, like I said, already in D.C., the skirmishes. March on D.C. to stop the steal. A lot of people, they see that coming. They see, other states gearing up to prosecute Donald Trump when he gets out of office. We think they're going to take that lightly? A lot of people support Trump. He is a populist. He got in just like Bernie would have got in, because he's not big corporation. He's a populist. He's the voice. He has the people's best interest in mind. With the stuff he says, the blue collar, the jobs. And that's what people, that's what we're looking towards. We need a third party. This Democrat-Republican thing is old and useless and stupid. It's the same party with just 2 different faces. It's 2 sides of the same coin. And people are waking up to that. They see the establishment. They don't want it. That's why Bernie was so popular for the left and Trump is so popular on the right. Trump isn't a Republican. He's a lifelong Democrat out of New York. But he ran as a Republican because the Democrat side of it is too radical. And he wants something that's more mainstream, that's more in line with what your typical, blue-collar worker person that's just trying to support their family wasn't like, That's why I voted for him. I'm just saying. But it's what it is. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure there'll be more news on Monday in Trump's favor, and that'll be crashed down to some degree. And it's not over yet. Electoral College votes on Monday. The electors could vote however they want. I'm not saying they're going to just all of a sudden just vote for Trump, which they have the constitutional authority to do. But we could see these electors appointed by the Secretary of State, which violates the Constitution, and then like the same state of Pennsylvania per se could also, the legislator could send another group of electors. That could be pretty weird. They're going to cancel each other out, or the vote's just thrown out entirely? Or what if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the constitutional agreement that the states have with the election rules? And then they throw out the electoral votes later on. You know, and then there could be objections on January 6th when the votes are counted. It's still a lot of time. Don't rule anything out until Trump's either out of office or Biden's sworn in. But even that, I don't know. So, there it is. There's that. I'm going to do another video because I didn't do one yesterday. And follow me on Twitch. Bye. Hit the stop.